Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Huffer and Friends, a podcast designed to help you flourish at life and relationships. I'm your host, Huffer, and I'm a lead pastor at a church called The Gathering Christian Church in Naples, Florida. And each week I have different friends from around the world on this podcast to help us talk about relevant topics for your life that will help you flourish in one of those two areas. Because I believe that I have the best friends in the world, and they help me flourish in those areas, and I think you hanging out with them will help you flourish too. And so today we are with my buddies Andy and Lindsay, where we get to do a Q&A session on the topic of on rebuilding your life. How do you get out of the messes you find yourself in? And so that's what we're talking about today. Andy, Lindsay, where are you guys at today, and how are you coming into the podcast? Andy, you go first.
Sitting at home in Naples, Florida, and just looking forward to getting into today's deeper topic.
Awesome. Fun. What about you, Linz?
I'm actually in Sunrise Beach, which is on Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. So I left home yesterday, 2 days ago, and I'm gone for 6 weeks. So yeah.
Wow.
Not here in the Ozarks. I'm going to Illinois.
Yeah. Where you're from. That's where you came from.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, one of the things I wanted to just start right off the bat and just ask you all is, have you ever had a season in your life where you feel like you found yourself in a mess and you're trying to get yourself out? Like, I know we usually try and kind of start light and have fun, but it's kind of a heavier topic today.
Yeah, I definitely have. I think we're in the midst of coming out of that just now, but there was a period in 2021 that brought us to Naples unexpectedly, and kind of just forced to rebuild from there and figure it out.
Awesome. Not awesome that you were in a mess, but awesome that you're getting out of the mess. What about you, Liz?
My life's perfect. I don't know what kind of seasons you're talking about. No, yeah, absolutely. I feel like seasons right now are going on, so there's always time for rebuilding, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
My last 48 hours have been a season
of getting to the Lake of the Ozarks. You had a tire explode, is what I remember, right?
We did, yes. It was very scary. So
everybody's safe and everyone's good.
Safe, yes, I'm the one that was driving, so I'm the one that that will never be lived down, though, I'm sure. So
no. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, I think I would like to share a little bit about my own story of rebuilding when I found myself in a mess, and it was a mental health mess. I was a pastor at a church in Joplin, Missouri called College Heights Christian Church. I was there for 7 years, and we felt like the first 4 years things were moving and progressing the right way. We had transitioned from a longtime pastor who was a really, really great pastor, very much loved. That's always hard to do, following someone like that. It's better to follow someone who was terrible. So don't do, no, I'm kidding. But there's different problems. But after those 4 years, we did this big financial campaign. We eliminated our debt as a church. Everyone was excited, exhilarated. It was January of 2020. March of 2020 hit. Everything started unraveling. I would not say unraveling. The cracks that were already there were the weight of COVID just broke them. It began to reveal the cracks that otherwise didn't seem like we were having to deal with, or were trying to deal with slower. And that led to a lot of turmoil in our church. It led to a lot of people just getting a separate, every leadership decision you made, whether it was mask, not mask, gather, not to gather, how you respond with George Floyd or not, all of that stuff led to a really, really big crisis moment at our church. And there was several people that were upset with me and our leadership and voiced it in such a way that was really harmful for me to receive. And so that led to me starting to be depressed and dealing with depression for several months. Started seeing a counselor. And then that ended up, our offerings dropped drastically, had to lay off half our staff at our church. And that led to a season where I thought we were doing okay. I was still seeing the counselor, though. And December of 21, I had a panic attack. a person walked into my office and told me that they're experiencing infidelity in their marriage. Their spouse is having an affair, and it just wrecked me. And I had my first panic attack. And so that spring, I started having more panic attacks, and that led to the elders saving my ministry to this day. I credit the fact that I'm still in ministry to the elders of College Heights Christian Church. And they gave me a sabbatical and paid for intensive counseling, and we worked through it. And I was able to understand a lot more about who I am, my family of origin, baggage from my own story and my own shame script, all those things that we could talk about more and in depth. But over time, I feel like I have seen myself and our family work through all of those issues to be in such a healthier spot today than we were back then. And so when we talk about rebuilding your life, that's my story. That's my narrative on how we had to go through that as a family, and me personally in ministry. And one of the things we talked about a couple of episodes ago was dream big, start small, execute like crazy. Like that's the mantra to rebuild your life. Dream big, start small, execute like crazy. And so I just wanted to start off with my own story today to help you know that we're speaking from a place of experience, not just theory. And so when we do like Q&A, hey, what questions do you guys have about rebuilding your life, my own story, that you think might be helpful for other people?
Yeah, first question, Isai, is, how do you keep faith? Right? I have a family member right now that their young child's very sick, right? You have hardships like yours. I mean, I think especially those that are newer to faith or those that have been religious and it's been in their family a long time, when really nasty things happen, how do you look and trust in God and just keep the faith?
Keep the faith. Yeah, I think a couple of things are key with keeping faith when you're trying to rebuild. The first one, and none of these are revolutionary. They're small, but they're consistent. The first thing to do is do not isolate. Like, do not isolate yourself. That is the tendency when you're going through a tough time, is to shut down and to withdraw from community, withdraw from other people. And that's what Satan wants to do, right? He wants, like the wolf knows, it's easier to kill a sheep away from the herd. So let's get you away from other people in order to take you down even further. And my dad always talks about going to church. And a lot of times he goes to church on Sunday mornings to see his community. He's like, okay, there's Steve. He's still at it. That builds my faith. There's Shannon. Seeing Shannon. Okay, yep, my buddy. He's still at it. I can keep going. There's James. And he just starts pointing to his people. He doesn't even have to talk to them. It's just seeing them, knowing that they're fighting the good fight, like he's fighting the good fight, builds his faith. And so I think that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say to keep the faith is read the Old Testament. That sounds weird, but the reason why I would say that is because the stories of the Old Testament are of fallen people who've gotten into messes, and God consistently gets them out. And I think when you read the stories of the heroes of the faith, you realize how imperfect they are. David had an affair. He killed somebody. Elijah had mental health issues and depression. You can go through the list. Joseph was a arrogant. Jacob was a deceiver. Like, you can go through the list and see all of their issues, and yet God gets them out of the messes they find themselves in. And that is a faith builder for me, for sure.
I think sorry. We're gonna say, did I interrupt somebody? Okay.
Nope.
I say I think that's like the hardest thing to remember too, is like I feel like people, pray when you don't get your way. It's easy to lose faith and be like, okay, well, he didn't answer my prayers today, so and I feel like people have a tendency to kind of fall away on those things. And so like, talking about, I'll use Nick for example. Not that Nick's falling away, but I feel like, Nick really wanted this job. He's been praying, and then he doesn't get this job that, he thought was he was going to get. Like, that was my biggest fear for Nick, was now that he's like kind of coming back around and finding himself again, that and finding his faith again. I feel like I don't want that like negative, that one negative thing to kind of like
Sure.
take him that step backwards. So that's where I have to like keep praying. Just because it didn't work out this time, I know God has a plan for you, so keep doing this. So
Yeah.
I think that, to me, I think people need to know that just because it doesn't work out immediately, you have to keep faith. You have to keep praying. You have to really keep going for it.
Well, that's, Joseph's story in the Bible, in the Old Testament. His brothers sell him into slavery. He is at Potiphar's house. He rises the ranks there. Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. He says no, he does the right thing. And then he gets thrown into jail. And then it says 2 years later. And that can be so quick to jump over. But think about 2 years of everyday praying, fighting, trying to be the best you can be, and getting no answer from God. Like those little time stamps in the Bible are sometimes easy for us to like. We think these events happen right after another in sequence, and they don't. There's years sometimes in between God showing up in incredible ways. Years of ordinary mundaneness. And that's where it's hard to keep the faith. So I have a lot of empathy for that, because I know you want it to be done now. And you always think that what you're going through is, what are the 3 Ps? It's like, it's personal, it's me, it's permanent, it'll never stop, and it's pervasive. It's affecting everything. And it takes a long time to unravel those things.
Absolutely. How do you feel like you stay grounded when things are chaotic and start to get chaotic?
Yeah, I think that I have a group of guys I talk to every night, my accountability partners, and they ask, mostly every night. Sometimes we miss if, like, you got family in town or something, but they ground me. I mean, every night I know I'm getting a call from 3 other guys that are also following Jesus, saying, "Hey, how are you on a scale of 1 to 4? Did you spend time with Jesus today? Did you honor your marriage? And are you lying to me?" And that grounds me. That just, I know that they're out looking out for me. And so Christian community is huge. I just can't underplay the role that having Christian community is a key part of your life plays in grounding you. Because when there's this Galatians 6:2 says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you fulfill the law of Christ." And so it's like, that means, Andy, your burden's my burden. Lindsay, your burden's my burden, and vice versa, right? And when you're down, it's my job to come alongside you and help you carry that burden, right? And then when I'm down, you do that for me. And so that's the beauty of Christian community that I say grounds me for sure. And then the last thing, this is there's nothing revolutionary about this. It's daily spending some time with Jesus, listening to worship songs, going on a prayer walk, reading the Bible. It's just each day drawing close to God and remembering who He is. And then the last thing I would say is going to church on Sundays, like making that a non-negotiable for your family. No matter how you feel, no matter how frustrated you are, walking into church, that event does something to your heart. There's, advertising agencies get this. They create moments with architecture. They create moments like with beauty, with music, with art, that do something inside of you, in your heart. It's not just what's happening into your head. It's what you're putting your body through, right? Day in and day out. And so when you go into that worship service, you're experiencing art with the music. You're taking communion, the bread and the blood of Jesus. There's this tactile piece to it, right? And you're hearing a message from the Lord, and you're encountering something otherworldly in that moment. And that grounds you in reality of like, okay, God's bigger than me. And I don't know if it's you all, but how many times do you feel like, me, I'm nothing special about me? How many times have you come to church over the last 9 months and the message was like perfect for you?
Yeah.
That's like every Sunday. Like, I feel
Right?
like you just like, yeah, you're just like, know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. And so, yeah, you come to church on Sunday and then you're like, oh my gosh, this applies 100% today.
That I don't know. I can't do that for every person in the room. right? Like that's impossible. That's the Holy Spirit that is speaking through me in the scriptures to each of you, everyone in that room, with what they are going through. And I've done this for 15 years now. I don't have like secret devices in your homes that I listen
Are you
to all
sure?
week to
Are
figure
you
out
sure
like
about
what's
that?
going. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not what's happening. That's the Holy Spirit, and that's what happens when you have Christian community. Two, that you spend time drawing near to God, and three, that you don't miss worship. You don't miss that time with Jesus at church, and it grounds you in those seasons. And going to church on Sundays when you're going through a nasty, rough time is the last thing people want to do. And it's the first thing Satan tries to get you to cut off.
I feel like when I'm having a down, if I'm like feeling down or defeated or anything, I don't use your gathering playlist, but I have a gathering playlist on my phone, and I literally just like turn on worship songs and I belt them out and sing them. So that like I just turn them, but put my AirPods in and turn up as loud as I can, and I basically shut out the world. So put my noise cancellation on, and yeah, just rock out to them. So I think
That's cool.
that's like my biggest uplifter. Like if I'm having a down moment, just turn on the music and it just kind of pumps me right back up.
Andy, do you feel like you have something you've been going to when you're having a down moment?
I mean, over the last 6 months, I've probably been in the Word and praying more with God than I ever have, and so that's been really, really enjoyable. But question to you is like, I can look back and see things in life that were really challenging, and felt like, gosh, what is God doing? In the moment, you're like, this is a mess. Why is this happening? And then you look back and you're like, oh wow, that all makes so much sense. And so, like, what are things that you do or believe people should do in the moment to better trust in what you can see in the rear view is so clear, but in the moment seems like so frustrating?
Yeah, it's you when you're in the moment, you can look two directions, but you can't look another one. Like it's harder to. It's harder to look forward. Like when you're in a mess, it's hard to see the future, right? It's hard to have a glimpse um, of what this is going to turn out to be. Like you're not that's not what prophets do. Prophets speak about what's going on in your life right now, what you need to repent of. They're not predictors of the future. Like that rarely happens, and even in the Bible. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up my Bible app. No, I don't want to do a. I don't want to tell you if I like it or not.
I
I
hate
sometimes
that.
wish that I could be more stoic and optimistic in the moment,
Yeah,
right? Like right now, there's nothing going on, so I'm like, hey, God's got this. Or things end up working out, and I'm like, man, God is so good. But where is it in the moment to go, I don't know why I'm stressing. Like God's plan is
yeah,
greater than mine.
yeah. It's you can't look forward. You have to look back first. I think. Um, there's this psalm. I think I'm in the wrong version. That is Psalm. I think it's Psalm 77. But you have to look back and then look up because you can't look ahead like that. Looking ahead is filled with worry and anxiety and all the kinds of things because you're borrowing from tomorrow's problems today, and you're playing that. Well, what if, right? Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? Yeah, Psalm 77. So Psalm 77 is this really good psalm, and the Psalms teach you how to pray. Okay, that's what the Psalms are. They're David's prayer journal, and they teach you how to pray for whatever season of life you're going through. Um, and Psalm 77, I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. Like this guy he's struggling. He's in a mess. What he says, this is the turning point of the Psalm, verse 10. Then I thought, to this I will appeal. The years when the Most High stretched out his right hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. I think that's the key, is that you can't look ahead. You have to first remember. You need to remember all of those moments where God was faithful in your life. And remember, that's why story and testimony, other people's testimonies are so important because they're sharing God's faithfulness and the memories of God's faithfulness in their life with you. And so you're building up your bank of God's faithful stories of the past in your life, that you're going, okay, I now have more evidence that God is faithful, that he's continuing to be faithful, and that yet to this I appeal. I'm going to remember your deeds. Like that, I think, is what you have to do. And so journaling, I think, is a really important habit to practice, spiritual habit, because what you do there is you're writing down, God's faithfulness of the past. It might be even good to have like a faithfulness journal, that you don't journal every day, but you continue to log, how has God been faithful in our past? And you just keep collecting those stories so that when you're in those moments, you can go back and you can just allow his faithfulness to help you today. And then the second look that, so you can't look ahead, you have to look back. And then you just keep looking up and drawing near to God. You tell him how angry you are. You tell him that he's a big boy, he can take it, right? Like you tell him, God, where are you? God, what the heck is going on? And then you force yourself, it's called Psalms of Lament, and you force yourself in the midst of your lament to say, but today I'm going to trust you. At the end, I'm going to trust you today. I'll give you another day, and that's that dream big, start small, execute like crazy. That's the daily grind. I think that helps you stay grounded in the midst of the mess.
I agree. I think the hardest part for me is just being patient when it comes to things like that. I'm constantly praying for patience, but it's like I want it now. I don't want to wait. And that's a hard thing for me to overcome. It's kind of a hard thing to overcome.
The other thing about suffering I want to speak on real quick when you're in a mess is a lot of times, so there's this false teaching out there that is called the prosperity gospel. And it teaches that when you follow Jesus, your life gets easier and better, and it makes you healthy, it makes you wealthy. All you gotta do is have enough faith. Okay? And if you have an illness in your family, if your kid has cancer, or you are in a bad spot, it's probably because you don't have enough faith. If you had more faith to pray bolder prayers, then God would answer them and heal your kid or heal you. And it's just not true. Like it's not scriptural based. They take things out of context and they use it for this name and claim it theology that is not consistently seen in scripture. Everyone experiences suffering. Suffering is a part of your journey with Jesus. When you suffer, consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith develops perseverance, character, and character hope. That's Bible. Literally, we're told in I think 1 Peter that when you follow Jesus, you will be persecuted. That doesn't sound like health and wealth to me, right? And so when you're in the tough time, the mess, you could have caused it by your bad decisions. That's one of the ways you got into a mess. You could be in a mess because of someone else's bad decisions. You could be in a mess because of a fallen world. I lived through the Joplin tornado in 2011. Like, that wasn't because someone sinned. That was because Adam and Eve sinned all those years ago, and we live in a fallen world. That's why, right? But when you find yourself in a mess and you're suffering, the question to ask is, okay, who am I becoming? What is this suffering doing in me to refine me? It's suffering as a refining fire. How is this making my faith more pure, my dependence of God deeper, and my empathy with others better, right? Like that's the question you got to ask. And that's where I bring that up because, Lindsay, we want the pain to go away as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like when you're doing a really hard workout, you're like, is it time yet? Like, is this thing over yet? Well, if you short circuit your workout, you're not going to become all that you want to be for the workout. The same is true with suffering. And that's really weird to talk about. But if you look back on all of your seasons of suffering that you got through, my guess is, do you feel like you came out of that a more mature, refined person than you were going into it?
Sorry, you're asking me that. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. Sorry, I thought it was hypothetically. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I think, yeah, I think when you experience that, I think that you, like, I feel like every time that you come out of something like that, I feel like every time you come out of it bigger and better than you did the last time you came out of something. So it's like for me at least, like I feel like every time, I go through something and, I think like, going through this, like, yeah, there's been times where I've gone through like bouts of depression or whatever. And I feel like in the last, like, I don't know, 8 months, 10 months, I feel like now I've put so much of my energy in like praying and reading the Bible and listening to my worship songs so that like I feel like now when I'm having those little like small things that like are kind of bringing me down, I literally just kind of go back and I I don't feel like I'm being let down and going down to the like, you have your highs up here, your lows down here. I don't feel like the lows are as lows as they used to be. I feel like the lows
Mm,
are slowly, they're kind of working themselves back up, if that
yeah,
makes any kind of sense at all. So,
absolutely.
but I do feel like every time it kind of gets easier and stronger every time you kind of go through that.
What about you, Andy? Do you feel like in your life the seasons of suffering and hardship have changed you in a positive way?
100%. So I had to Google it, right? I'm sure you've heard of it, right? I've asked for strength, and God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to solve. I asked for courage. God gave me dangers to overcome, right? And
Mm,
so, if you think like a muscle, you have to go and rip that muscle for it to grow stronger and grow bigger, right? And so, marriage, one of you goes through adultery or tough times or mental health or a sickness. Those things that can test your marriage can bring you really stronger together.
mm,
And so, in the 2021, I was workaholic, had climbed all these ladders. It was promotion after promotion. Life was like great. And all of a sudden they came in and like, yeah, you're going to resign. You're going to move to Florida, and threw me through an entire identity crisis. I was like, this is everything I've been. I've worked so hard, put my family through hell. Now what? But I would have probably never gotten close to God. Like we were
yeah.
dabblers starting in 2017. And, then I realized like I was making life too much about me. There was an arrogancy problem. I was always dependent on me, but none of it came from me. It came from God, which
Hmm.
led to baptism, being closer with the gathering in the church. And that probably never would have happened. I would have been walking around arrogant, not praising God for everything that had been given to me. And, now I'm thankful that it occurred. But during that moment, it was awful. Now you look back and
Yeah.
you're like, wow, thank God. That was probably one of the best things that ever happened. But I think, you don't learn much from good times. You don't learn much from winning, but losing teaches you a lot.
Yeah.
Hardships probably make you stronger and bring you closer.
That's
I
so good.
totally wholeheartedly agree and believe that.
That's so good. Well, and if you're out, I'd say if you're out there, like listening to this, and that's what you're wrestling through right now, it's easy for us on the back end of suffering to talk about this, the beauty that suffering brings to your life. I don't want us to come off like cold or like Walt Disney-ish, just like, well, Hakuna Matata, that's not what we're wanting to say. Like, I'm sure if you're going through a hard season, you're listening to this, I want you to know that we have empathy for that. We've been there for that, and it is heart wrenching. And my biggest encouragement to you is don't do it alone. Like you cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
No,
Si, if I can add, like one of the things that was confusing to me was the Sarah curve, right? When you get news, you have shock, you have anger, you have healing, and then you have acceptance. And so I thought I'd quickly move past it. I was reading Stoic books, and I was like, yeah, we're good. Like it happened. The tree is in the path. That is now the path. And then I would like relapse. And that still happens today, like trusting in God. And most days I'm like, yeah, God's got this. I'm too blessed to stress. And then every now and then scarcity will come in. And so I think if you're going through a hard time, it's okay to realize that the Sarah curve can restart. You could have been awesome last week, and today it's shaking you up again. And I just
That's
I
wouldn't
think
human.
that I
judge
think that's
themselves.
the hardest thing for me is like I have a problem with letting things go. And so like and I don't want to say I have a hard time letting things go, but I like dwell on things. So like you could tell me that you can make a comment to me about, oh, like, oh, I saw you, whatever. And like, it has nothing like, you think that it's just like this innocent little comment about an outfit. You made a comment about my outfit. I'm literally going to go home and be like, oh, what was he trying to say about my outfit? Was that like, and I'm going to like sit there and go back to that comment 3 weeks from now. Like, why was he making that comment about my outfit? So I like that was just a random example. Sorry. That was all I could think of at the moment. But I think that's for me, like I have a hard time letting those things go. And so, yes, with suffering and things like that, I regularly kind of go back to those moments like, okay, look, what if or why or how or I evaluate everything one of those moments. So I do relapse all the time. I'm feeling great, I'm on top of the world, and then I have this dark moment where I'm kind of like finding myself way back in there. So I do remind myself recently, like I said, more recently, I feel like I've been going through many more. I'm in a season at the moment, but I feel like I find myself just saying like, okay, this is what Satan wants from me. This is like, he wants me to feel this way. So don't let him get the best of my mind, and go back to my praying, go back to my Bible, go back to my worship music. So that's what I just try to keep reminding myself.
Two things that you made me think of. First is I'll never comment about your clothes again. Second, no, I'm kidding. But secondly, I think the reason why relapse happens so often in our culture, like what you're talking about, it's hard to let things go, is because we don't give ourselves permission to feel it in the moment. Like we don't lament well as a culture, because it's like, no, too blessed to stress, like you said. It's like, no, I was at a pastor's gathering, and this female pastor got up, and everyone was like hugging her. I didn't know what was going on. She goes, well, my husband died last week. I'm like, oh, and you're here. And she just started praising Jesus and just said, it's crazy, I haven't even cried. And there's in me, there was something in me that was just like, what have we done to make pastors and leaders and Christians think following Jesus means I can't be sad? Having faith means I can't lament and can't cry and can't weep. Like, it's normal to weep when your husband dies. Like, that's what you should do. And so I think we have made it to where having faith, like having this great faith in God means you can't be sad, or you can't be depressed, or you can't be struggling. And the Psalms are full of these Psalms of lament where David is literally crying to God. And so I think one of what we do is when we go through hard times, we stuff it. And we say, well, we're fine. Well, we're good. Yeah, I'm good. And it keeps coming back because you can't keep all that inside of you. You're not good. Yeah. It keeps popping up, because you didn't actually deal with it. So I went through a really hard time with some friends about a year ago. And I didn't know how to deal with it until finally I was just working until finally I went and did a retreat by myself alone for 24 hours, which for me is hell. I hate being alone. But I wrote a lament. I wrote a psalm of lament about all the things that made me sad about this situation. And the easy way to do it, so you don't know how to do it, there's a book in the Bible called Lamentations. Okay? And every chapter, it's 5 chapters, every chapter of Lamentations is just the Hebrew alphabet. And the author just starts the first sentence with A, the second verse with B, the third verse with C. And he just uses the alphabet to guide his sorrow. And he does that 5 times. And if you don't know how to lament and how to feel what you're going through because you have so much emotions, you need a structure to express it. So that's my encouragement. Use the alphabet. Do what they did in the Bible. And just say, anger. Like, I'm feeling anger because of, and then just describe it. Then think about the letter B. Like, how are you feeling that with something that starts with the letter B? That just gives you a grid. And when I did that, I wept finally over this situation because I allowed myself to be sad and lament. And finally, at the end of that, I was able to go, okay, I felt what I needed to feel. I haven't been reliving it ever since. Of course, there's times where you think about it and you struggle with it. But I think a big part, the reason why it's hard for us to let things go is because we don't lament to begin with.
Yeah, I think, obviously everybody's got difficulty and adversity, but I think males were especially guilty of that. Like, for the longest time, my answer to emotions was you just stuff it down as far as you can and try never to bring it up or think about it again.
Yeah.
And that's actually pretty awful.
Yeah, that didn't work. It comes out in bad ways. It's gonna get
When I'm
out.
when I'm feeling down, I just need a big giant hug. We know
Yes, you
that's a
do,
joke.
Lindsay.
We know that's a joke.
Okay. Any last word? Any last question for
I
us
have
to close
I
out
have
our
a good
time?
last question, unless Andy has one.
No,
Go.
I'm out.
What? You have one?
No, I'm good. Go
Oh,
ahead.
good. You're not allowed to talk anyway. If
Jeez.
if someone is listening today, right on the edge of giving up, what is your advice? What do you suggest for them?
They're on the edge of giving up on anything. Just
Yeah, just
on.
like if you're on the edge, like you're just like you're at your lowest of your low, you hit rock bottom. I'm not saying like they want to go end their life or anything, but you're
Mm.
just you can't go any lower, and they're just like, I'm done. Like I don't even know what to do with my life anymore. I can't do it. What's your like final advice? Like they hear this episode and you're like, okay, you want one takeaway from this whole episode.
Yeah. 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 Um. Yeah. First of all, I would say if you're lowest of lows, I'm sorry. That sucks. That's awful. It's terrible. It is. You feel like nothing can get any better. You know that you have no hope. What you have to do is you have to dare to hope again. You're gonna, and that's dangerous because your hope is what's being crushed right now, and you don't have hope, and so you can't hope in yourself. You can't hope in your circumstances. You can't hope in anything else besides there is a God. This is what I believe. There is a God that sees you, knows you, loves you, and has the power to resurrect people from the dead. And if he resurrected Jesus, I know your situation feels like death, but know that he can resurrect you and your situation to something new. And so you have to dare to hope that there's some other being that can rescue you. Now, he won't meet your expectations. You probably have bad expectations of what rescue means, right? You're going to have to let that die too. But and there's this word, this buzzword running around right now called deconstruction. I deconstructed my faith. I don't like it because all it's talking about is tearing down stuff. It's not talking about reconstruction. And in reality, we've had deconstruction around for 2,000 years. It's called a death and a resurrection. Okay? And things die. My expectations die. The way I live dies. But if I'm with Jesus, he resurrects it to something new. Not what I expected, but something better. And so I would give them the encouragement, dare to hope that in a God that can rescue you. That you have to have hope. And that hope, man, that will faith and love spring from hope is what the Bible says. So that's a good thing to end on. So hey, Andy, Lindsay, thank you so much for being on this podcast today. As always, I love hanging out with you all. And if you like what you're hearing, if you want to follow along, make sure you like or comment or follow us. We're on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. And as always, you are made for more, so don't settle for anything less. Have a great day.